Welcome
All right.
back to 22 Panels, everybody. Where my guest tonight is the writer Julio Anta, who was with the Milestone Initiative, but we didn't manage to get him that night when we had everybody. But he also recently released Si Se Pueda. Did I get that right?
Close. Sí se puede.
Si Se Pueda. Okay. Which had me hook, line, and sinker as soon as I saw the Roberto Clemente art. By the time this goes up, we'll have our annual baseball and comics podcast up as well. That was last night. We had Rob Nyer and Derek Gold, the baseball writers, and Mark Chiarello and Heidi McDonald,
Very cool.
the baseball fans.
Nice. Nice. Yeah. I mean, I guess you can tell from the book, but yeah, I'm a big into Yankees.
Okay.
Uh,
We're, I can't figure out if it's on your side or my side. You're getting choppy.
oh,
Okay, we're
um,
good again. Every
we're
time I
good.
say it, it sounds good again.
All right.
I'll let Tyler know that he might actually want to look at the beginning. Though sometimes it records better than it sounds on
hmm
my side, which is also weird.
Yeah.
So, because I didn't hear it, what were you saying
Oh
after I
no,
said
I
it?
was saying that I'm also a baseball fan.
Okay.
As you might have could tell from the book, but
I mean, I was hoping
yeah,
the character in the book was more of a Clemente fan than a baseball fan, so it was
yes.
possible that.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's Yasmin, the artist. That's very much
Okay,
like her. Like
okay,
she loves Roberto. But I don't think she's really a baseball fan.
okay.
But I'm in New York, so I follow the Yankees.
So you would have gotten along with Chiarello.
Yeah,
He's a Yankee fan. Heidi's a Mets fan. I don't like the New York teams. I'm a Cubs fan.
I understand most people not liking the Yankees at least, but
I'm a Cubs fan. So
hmm
even though I wasn't alive for it, I was alive for all the years of Ron Santo painfully remembering the Mets in 1969 on the radio anytime the Mets beat us, which was
hmm
too much, particularly during the Gooden years. So, yeah. So tell me about this book.
Yeah.
I mean, as a
So
teacher, I was all over it. I'm always looking
thank
for
you.
things to learn about my students' heritage and
hmm
or help other students learn about their classmates' heritage, etc.
Yeah. Where do you
Um,
teach?
I am in Lincolnshire, Illinois,
Okay.
so a very rich Chicago suburb,
Okay.
um, with actually a pretty diverse student body, but way more Asian than Hispanic and Black. We've
Okay.
probably
Interesting.
got we've probably got at most 5% of the population is Hispanic and Black.
Wow.
We've probably got about 20% East Asian
hmm
and 10 or 15% um, Central Asian.
Okay.
We actually have they actually put this number out recently, something like 200 languages
Wow.
that are spoken at the homes of our students.
Interesting.
Um, well, I mean, we're a destination school. We're like regularly on best of the country lists, etc.
Yeah. Score
Um,
well on tests and everything.
well, and our special ed program in particular is, and that's the program I'm in. The special ed program is particularly well regarded.
hmm
So there are families that will like save up to move into district for high school and then leave the district when their kids are done with high school.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely surprised by the Hispanic population being so low. But But yeah, so this book, Si se
I
puede.
live in an area with much greater Hispanic
Yeah.
population.
Well, yeah, you say Chicago, Chicago suburbs,
Right.
that one of the things I talk about in the book is how the Latino population is growing in areas that have historically low Latino
Yeah.
populations,
Hmm.
are some of the fastest growing areas. And a lot of that's the Midwest.
Yes.
I'm not sure specifically Chicago and Illinois, but we mentioned some of the spots in the book, but I guess just broadly to talk about the book, Si se puede is a book about, it's a graphic novel written by me, illustrated by Yasmin Flores Montañez, and it is about the Latino heroes who changed the United States. So it's a book where we kind of go on a journey through history, through to meet important Latinos, people like uh, more popular, like Cesar Chavez, Dolores Huerta, and then a lot of people that you may never have heard of before. So it's a book that Yasmin and I are both really proud of, that we think is important, especially for the education space, but also just to educate people about who we are, and also to for Latino students to see themselves in as well.
Absolutely. Um, I appreciated that it wasn't just the well-known names that you didn't skip the well. I mean, too often it seems, whether it's textbooks or comics, you either have just the well-known names or
Hmm.
just the people that nobody knows,
Yeah.
or just the athletes and none of the activists, or just the
Hmm.
scientists. So I appreciated the diversity of jobs and overall popularity, name recognition, etc., that you worked into this, because there's a little something for everybody. Um,
Thanks. Yeah, for us it was important to have, to your point, a diversity of fields, but also of experiences. We're talking about people all the way back from the era of the Civil War,
right.
and then we're also talking about people today, right? Like Stephanie Artega, who was an activist that I first learned about her by watching a Netflix documentary that she was featured in. But one of the like amazing things that she did is she's undocumented. A lot of people in her community are undocumented as well. And a lot of them obviously being targeted by ICE, immigration for deportation. And she just started essentially a watchdog group where they would follow ICE around with, on live streams on social media to let people know where they were, and also to inform people of their rights.
Right.
So it runs the gamut, obviously, of fields, but also I think of
Are you frozen or am I frozen?
I'm here.
Okay. I think I'm having one of those nights. And again, most of the time, this records well. But I'm going to
Hmm.
send a quick text to my wife and see if maybe we can stop streaming upstairs, because it
Hmm.
seems like it's one of those nights where the internet doesn't want to be kind to us. I heard most of that, I think.
Okay.
And again, I think it all got recorded. So either Tyler will mess with it, or this will be an interesting podcast that will get more interesting as we fix things.
Fingers
Um,
crossed.
I'm so sorry, Julio.
No, it's all good.
One of the things that I noticed the most um, in society with my students in general, um, whatever the in group is, looks at all of the out groups as monoliths.
Hmm.
So I so appreciated it as I read through the different personalities, the different heritages, the
Hmm.
different jobs. Um, was that something that you were conscious of as you were writing? Was that something that you
Hmm.
were I assumed?
Yeah, no, definitely. Like I explained in the book, Latinos obviously are not a monolith. We are I would say the most diverse group, at least most diverse racialized group in the United States. We obviously come from many different countries throughout Latin America, which includes the Caribbean, two continents, so from different generations of migration. So, for us, it was really important to have this tapestry of identities, of racial identities, especially to acknowledge that and make a point to acknowledge that Latinos are not just quote unquote brown or whatever,
Right.
you might see in, TV or movies. We have everyone from, the whitest blue-eyed people you've ever seen to, people who have 100% African roots, and everything in between. And, we talk about mestizos and the way that in Latin America, the way that racial mixing happened with the Spanish, the indigenous, and the enslaved African people, and how that makes up what you see today in real life, despite what you might see on TV or the way that politicians might want to talk about Latinos as a monolith. Was super important to us.
Which person, when you were researching them, or possibly when they just came across your radar and you decided I need to research this person, was there
Mm-hmm.
anybody in the book that was new and or expanded in surprising ways where you went, I kind of like this person and now I love this person? Um,
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you two examples. One of them, so the Civil War chapter of the book, that's the second chapter. Everybody in that chapter was new to me when I started researching this book. I didn't know about these, people that are of Latin American origin that had been living in the United States that then fought for the North in the Civil War. I wasn't aware of any of them, and one of them in particular, Federico Fernandez Cavada, is a Cuban American man who was both a cartographer and flew in hot air balloons. And while he was in the war, the U.S. Military would fly hot air balloons as a form of reconnaissance for map making. So
Right.
this guy would be in a hot air balloon drawing maps of enemy locations and positions, and then sending it down. And he was someone that was super interesting to me because he was born in Cuba, made a name for himself in the U.S., and then by the end of his life, returned to Cuba and fought in the 10-Year War, which was a failed independence war that Cuba waged against Spain. And he ended up dying back in Cuba where he was born. So he was super interesting to me. Definitely needed to include him when I read about him. And the other group as well was the Young Lords, which, for those who aren't familiar, the Young Lords were a Puerto Rican revolutionary group in New York City. They modeled themselves after the Black Panther Party, and they essentially were. So some of that might have included taking over a church so that they could provide free breakfasts to students in the area, or taking over a hospital that had the highest mortality rate in the city. It was known within the city as the butcher shop. And they took over and introduced for the first time ever a patient's bill of rights. And so many of the members of the Young Lords went on to be journalists and TV personalities, just really kind of formed in this new left environment during the Vietnam War, in these revolutionary politics. And then when the group disbanded, went their separate ways and still continued the work that they were doing, but in different fields. So they were someone that I only got to give one page to in a sort of biography page. But they're a group that, without giving away too much for the future, discoveries for me, and really just read it to satisfy my own curiosities. This is the kind of book that I wish existed, and if it did, I wouldn't have written it.
Right.
So for me, a lot of my work really stems from my own curiosities, my own research, and then finding a way to integrate that into the work that I do.
Well, that leads me neatly into the question I wanted to ask before we got into Frontera
Mm-hmm.
and home. Aside from the obvious, wanting to tell tales about your heritage and people like you,
Mm-hmm.
which there are plenty of people who could say that and yet don't. Um, not everybody decides to be a storyteller. Not everybody
Mm-hmm.
decide what motivates you to do the writing that you do, which is not only phenomenal writing and great storytelling, but you clearly have a purpose to expose. We had a roundtable a while ago, um, that did a lot of focus on the empathy that
Mm-hmm.
comics can help foster. I don't think there's a medium that fosters empathy better than comics, and particularly as I was reading Frontera and Home today, I felt that
Mm-hmm.
immensely. I mean, you dealt with a lot of things that I knew some about, and I'd even read some stuff that was a little bit more about it and therefore had empathy, but Home
Mm-hmm.
in particular, um, I wound up feeling the desperation of having to leave one's home because it's not safe anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Feeling the devastation when I show up at this place that's supposed to be safe and instead is cold. And
Mm-hmm.
um yeah, what inspired you to because it couldn't have been easy to write. I mean yeah.
For
I don't
sure.
feel like I'm phrasing the questions great here, but I hope you
No, it's
get
all
where
right.
I'm going.
Yeah, no, for sure. I no, I feel you. Yeah, Home was definitely the most difficult book to write from an emotional perspective. It's certainly the most urgent, and when I reread it now, I think the angriest book that I've written. A lot of my work comes from that place of anger. Home was my first project. It was a mini series at Image, and it's something that I wrote as a way to sort of exercise my own feelings, I guess, as a form of therapy, but also I think you can certainly categorize all of my books as a form of activism as well.
Right.
And with Home, it was written directly because of what I was seeing at the border with the family separation policy. Um, and the anger that I was feeling, my a little bit of my personal history. My family comes from Cuba and from Colombia, and uh, you know, Cold War anti-communist policies that the US had, he was able to come to the US and never worry about being deported. He was able to come to a Miami that was filled with Cubans, and that welcomed him with open arms and built this community of people with similar experiences. And then the other side of my family, on the Colombian side, it's a story of undocumented people. Um, and to add a little further context, at the time of the family separation crisis in 2018, I was a new father. I had a 2-year-old at the time. So my family history, my own experience in that moment, all kind of converged when I saw all these images of children in cages and family
Right.
members talking about how they were separated from their kids. And in the eyes of these kids, I saw my dad as a 5-year-old who was welcomed to this country and never worried about deportation. And I saw my own son in the eyes of these
Right.
kids set out to learn how to write comics. It was all in service of writing Home, because it was something that just struck me so deeply, and that um, was a new level of cruelty that uh, I hadn't I hadn't personally experienced, but also that I hadn't seen so flagrantly in recent history in the U.S. So that's where Home came from. But I think with the other books, it comes from two places. It comes from wanting to see myself and my community and our stories in books, but also to, I guess, with each book has a theme that I'm trying to address, whether it's something that I'm angry about or something that I'm passionate about. And these books serve as my, I guess, my best argument on the
Okay.
subject, right? So with Frontera, it is a book about the way that the border changes over the last cities, or wildlife, or people who are passing through from, Mexico to the US. And it's a book about this angry kid, who feels like his whole life was taken away from him,
It
simply
was.
because he didn't have papers, and he was
Well,
undocumented.
and I mean, one of the things that I'll remind the kid, or sometimes unfortunately the adult, who is too quick to talk about, oh well, they should get their documentation or whatever,
Hmm.
is twofold. It's that, please remember that Texas, New Mexico, I mean, New Mexico,
Hmm.
Arizona, and like two-thirds of California were once part of Mexico. So
Hmm.
there are lots of people who the border crossed them,
Yep.
you know. And particularly when borders cross you, that can wind up meaning that your family has now been split. You could pretty
Yep.
easily have people that are closely related that live on either side of the border.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
Beyond all of that, um, people don't uproot their lives for nothing.
Hmm. Yeah.
I mean, just people don't uproot their lives for nothing. I mean,
Yeah.
I thought that was something that you actually portrayed really well in Home, where
Hmm.
he was upset to be leaving. And he
Yeah.
had to have his
Yeah.
mom go, "No, it's too dangerous for us here. We can't
Yeah.
stay." And he's like, "But
Yeah.
this is home. I like it here."
Hmm. Yeah, and that was one of the big parts of Home. It was that you have this kid that everything in his life is just totally out of control, right? The reasons for him having to migrate to the US, the reasons why he was taken away from his mom, and then the reasons why these powers mysteriously,
Yeah.
appear and explode. It's all out of his control. And then the rest of the
And
story
God
is
bless
about
him for
him.
having, restraint, because I don't think I would have. I would have gone, I can blow things up with my hands. Look at
It's
that
part of the
guy.
big conversation in that book, right? It's about like, what do you do with these powers? And like,
Right.
obviously riffing on X-Men a bit, but
Right.
for me it's this multi-generational conversation that I have within my own family, which is, how far do we assimilate into this country? How far do we take away from who we are to be accepted? And I think it's a conversation that you see a lot between the generation of my parents and the newer generation, my generation, and people younger than me. And that was a big part that was really important for me to address in that book. And then in Frontera, it was also to show just how difficult it is to cross the
Yeah.
Sonoran Desert. There's so much danger, whether it's the wildlife that he encounters, the natural environment, the heat,
Hmm.
or militias and the border
Right.
patrol. So yeah, all of these books come from me trying to find a way to help people understand these perspectives and, my point of view at least.
So, which do you like more, the nonfiction or the fiction?
I think I previously would have said the fiction, because Si Se Puede was a really hard book to write. But I think it was because it's so fragmented. Every part of the book is, I might talk about someone from one page, like the Young Lords, or for 30 pages, like Clemente.
Right.
So it felt like a lot of back and forth. But now, because of some of the projects I'm working on now that are uh, full length books, but about single subjects,
Right.
I think nonfiction is kind of like, that's where a lot of my personal reading is. A lot of my research comes from, and but it's a mixture of the two, because all of my fiction is rooted in nonfiction anyway.
Right.
But yeah, so I think both of them. But right now, I'm in a bit of a non.
Bit of nonfiction. Um, are you staying? I mean, obviously, you probably can't talk too much about projects that haven't been announced.
Mhm,
Um, though your website does have second generation blues, Speak Up
mhm,
Santiago, and Paco and Tiny listed.
mhm.
So I might ask you what each of those are at some point.
Sure. Yeah.
um, but are you staying primarily current nonfiction? Are you getting into
Mhm.
historical dives? What are you
Yeah, definitely doing historical. The next project on my I'm wrapping up actually I guess it's funny to think of what qualifies as historical
yeah,
now because the book that I'm finishing right now, I'm actually finishing it this week, takes place in 1995, when I was
okay,
a kid.
right.
Which I
Yeah,
guess
yeah.
that's historical fiction now.
It's always hard when the bands you grew up on
Mhm.
with appearing on the classic rock stations.
Yeah, they
It's
start
like,
doing
uh,
but yeah, so the books that you list there, those are all contemporary stories.
okay,
But really, graphic novels, they take so long to make. I'm sure
they
you've
do.
heard people say that before. But with the work that I do, which is
You're like the
primarily,
135th interview, I think. So, I mean, it
yeah,
has come up once or twice.
yeah. I mean,
I've got
the
some
work
good
that
friends who
I
are artists.
mhm, takes
Actually,
much longer for them.
when you a good friend of mine and regular on the podcast is Marcus Kwame Anderson, who did the Black Panther Party
Yeah, yeah.
graphic novel, and yeah, I know all about how long
Yeah.
these
I mean
books
that,
take.
I'll say this, and I mentioned this somewhere and I tagged him in it and I know he saw it. But CSIP Weather would not exist without the Black Panther Party graphic novel.
Well, I'll let him know you
That
said that.
Yeah, I mean that book was the primary inspiration. I read that book and I was like, damn, we need something like this, you
Yeah,
know? And obviously it's a very different format. That's a one subject or one group. I My script has photo reference of the Black Panther Party book that I sent to Yasmin the artist, where I was like, do this,
yeah,
and obviously we're at the same publisher, 10 Speed Press.
right.
So yeah, I mean, really, really big inspiration for this
No,
book.
it came out. It was perfect timing for me because I'd been thinking a similar thing. Just because my school is really good at making certain that our students get Black history and Black perspectives.
Mhm,
Um, not as good at Latin
mhm,
perspectives. Um, and I've been in a classroom where we're reading Dear Martin, and some kids are connecting
mhm,
with it, and some kids aren't.
mhm.
Um, and some of the kids that aren't have a Hispanic background, and I'm sitting there
Yeah,
going, okay, how can I try to bring this to them?
yeah.
And it's not even a matter of being able to put another book in their hands. It's like I suddenly realized I don't know enough about
Mhm.
their possible heritage to even try to
Yeah.
make allusions to
Yeah,
try
yeah.
to um
I mean, I think it's tough, but I think now, especially now in the recent like weeks and month, you're hearing a lot about intersectionality of
right,
struggle and of between oppressed groups. And, I think that for a long time, there isn't a lot of Latino media out there in general, whether it's
right,
comics, TV, whatever. But for me, like a lot of what I connected to was that, I grew up in the 90s and, like watching UPN where the lineup was almost all, shows that are centered around Black characters and Black
right,
families. And I'm connecting with that because it's so similar to my family,
right.
and I'm watching, on Disney Channel, I'm watching Sister Sister and Smart Guy, and also, these stories that are about these Black families. So I think obviously, like, I don't need a teacher to like draw those parallels, right? Because it's like it a lot of times it seems very similar. But I think once you can draw that parallel, it becomes about identifying that, all of our like struggles in this country at least are linked to each other, you know.
Right.
And I, you know, I try to make that point in Si Se Puede as well. But yeah, you know, I think and that's why one of the important things for me too is the educator guides,
Yeah,
which
I enjoyed. I didn't read every word of it because
yeah, it's a
I
lot.
was at school, and like I said, I went through both Frontera and home like last night and today
Hmm.
because I went, oh, these both look really good, and I'm talking
Hmm.
to them tonight. So
Yeah.
let's squeeze it into my free time.
Yeah.
But it's much harder to squeeze prose into free time.
Yeah. No, I feel you. Yeah. But yeah, so you know, those educators for me are a way to hopefully try to bridge the gap, you know,
Yeah,
make those conversations a little easier. With whom it came, we packaged it right in the trade paperback.
I saw that. I
With
really appreciated
Frontera,
that.
it wasn't ready on time, but it's available as a free download online.
Okay,
And then with Si Se Puede as well, that'll be coming out, I think before the end of the year, the educator guide will be out.
very cool.
But that's, you know, that's something that for me is super important because I can't cram everything into these books, you
No,
know, and with Home in particular, where it was a 5 issue, you know, 20 pages per issue miniseries. The educator guide, I think, for me, helps educators get a lot of the context. You
right,
know, like why was child separation different from what was happening before? You know,
right,
what these Trump era policies, like where do they come from? You know,
right,
and how to have those conversations with students. But yeah, so that, you know, for me, that classroom aspect is super important.
right. Do you work with a particular group, or do you write that on your own? How do you put together the
The educator guides.
right?
Yeah, someone who used to work at Reimagining Migration that now has her own educational resource group. She wrote the one for Si Se Puede. And these are, you know, generally I have conversations with the educators that are putting this together. Generally, it's a group of maybe five
Okay,
educators of various age groups. And you know, they take the book, they have a conversation with me, and then they show me how they would teach it in their classroom. And usually that's exactly how it ends up in the educator guide, which is great for me because it's, you know, by educators for educators.
right.
And yeah, you know, it makes it a lot simpler for me. I don't need to write it all. You know, they
Right.
can just take what I wrote, ask me questions, have a conversation,
Well,
and then create this resource.
I don't know your background. I know as a teacher, to a certain extent, we prefer educator guides that are written by teachers, just because
Hmm.
sometimes when they're written even by the author, it's like, okay, this is great information, but it's not in a way that I can easily take it and teach it. I still have to now
Yeah.
take all of this information you gave me and turn it into lesson plans.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Um, which is one of the things that I appreciated going through the home educator guide is they're really you could just use it straight as lesson plans. Probably
Hmm.
you cherry pick rather than doing like whole
The whole
segments.
thing. Yeah.
Right. But even so, rather than having to take this extra information and frame a question about it, it's like, oh no, this is a great question to ask, and this is a
Hmm.
great question to ask.
Yeah.
And
No, I think
oh,
they
look
did a
at
great
this list
job
of
on it.
resources.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey kids, go here.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. It has a lot of links. It's, yeah,
Right.
super robust. I was really proud of the work that they did.
Yeah. No, it was amazing work. I was very impressed. Um, Another one of my passions personally lately has been because I've been on a history kick too. I mean, I don't think you can be living in America right now and like paying any attention whatsoever and not want to know a little bit more
Hmm.
about how we got to where we're at.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I also happen to be a smart guy and have like an hour in the car every day to listen to nonfiction if I
Hmm.
want and that sort of thing. So, been doing deep dives in various stuff.
Cool.
And one of the things that I've really been trying to do is find like deep dives on things from a different perspective.
Okay.
Like we're very used to the European perspective or the white
Hmm.
American perspective. I read a book recently called Indigenous Peoples that was essentially the history, I mean, all of the wars, all of the Western expansion or whatnot, but
Hmm.
very much centered from the indigenous point of view, where,
Yeah.
we see it as this manifest destiny,
Hmm.
nonstop push west. Nope, they kicked our ass a lot.
Yeah. Definitely.
it,
Yeah.
it actually moved pretty slow because they kicked our ass
Hmm.
a lot.
Yeah, and there was
Um,
holdouts in certain parts of the
right.
country for a long time.
Unfortunately, we just eventually outnumbered them.
Hmm.
Particularly when we brought all the I mean, the germs were a big fact.
Hmm.
Germs and the fact that, we just kept having people coming over from Europe. So,
Yeah, it's constant flow of people.
wasn't even that we made more babies. We just had,
Yeah.
we had people on deck. It's like, oh, we need more white people to kill these Indians.
Hmm.
Tell me if I get too over the line. I try to bring
No,
humor to
no, no,
it.
you're good.
um, but so a book that I read recently that's from a slightly different perspective, but it's still pretty much a white European perspective,
Hmm.
was Jonathan Katz wrote a book called Gangsters of Capitalism
Okay.
that was, on one level, it followed Smedley Butler's career through in the Marines, because he was pretty much there everywhere we showed up, and like killed people because the fruit farmers wanted to keep their land or the oil
Hmm.
companies wanted to keep their land
Hmm.
or whatever. But it had me start, I mean, aside from the fact that I went, oh God, all of the problems in South America, Central America, Mexico
Hmm.
can be traced to the United States.
Yep.
It
U.S. imperialism.
absolutely. Which is still going on. Something that I like
Hmm.
to bring up regularly is Mexico's got really strong gun laws that
Hmm.
they're really good at enforcing everywhere
Yes, they
except
got
the
to get their
border.
guns from here. Yeah.
Yeah, everywhere except the border. Unfortunately, the easiest place in the world to buy a gun is Texas.
Yep. Right across the border.
We talk about, oh, the single most smuggled thing across the southern border is guns, and they're going south.
Hmm.
We want to fix the drug problem. Keep the guns up here. It's really that simple. I mean, I'm certain there's other, but it would make such a massive difference if they weren't outgunned because of American guns.
Yeah, yeah. And a lot of the root of a lot of my work and a lot of my interests is that history of US imperialism in
Right.
Latin America. And obviously it takes different forms now. It's much more covert now than as overt as it was in the past, where, you literally had Marines all over Central America,
Yep.
all over South America. You had coups. I mean, you
Right
still
and left.
have, sorry.
Right and left.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you had the School of the Americas, which I don't know if you're familiar with it. Now it goes
A
under a
little bit.
different name.
A little bit
Yeah.
at Fort Benning.
Yep, yep. And for those of you who are listening that aren't aware, School of the Americas originally in the Panama Canal Zone, kicked out, brought to the US. If you look at almost every dictatorship in Latin America, the committed the coup, who ran the government, who were in the death squad, they were in the US at Fort Benning, at the School of the Americas. And this is, you see the training manuals that they used. It's all things that are illegal for
Yeah.
US troops to do.
Uh-huh.
Um, and it's all
Which
in the
unfortunately hasn't stopped U.S. troops all the time either.
yeah, no, no, definitely. But yeah, and it's all in the service of big business. It used to be, fruit companies.
Right.
Now it's oil. Now it's, telecommunications. It's everything,
Right.
and it's all about, U.S. quote unquote U.S. interests, but really it's imperialism
Yeah.
in Latin
We
America,
like
and
to
you can
say it's not
literally,
imperialism because we don't actually take the land, but we let our corporations, you know,
yeah, it's in
completely
service
pillage the
of
land.
corporate interests, right? Like,
Right.
you don't see it today, but 100 years ago, you'd have Marines storming.
Yeah, if you haven't read it, Jonathan Katz's book is fantastic. Uh, and it actually sped. I mean, the name came from Smedley Butler at the end of his career, like
Mhm,
woke up to what they were doing, and he wrote
mhm,
his own little book that all but got him excommunicated from the Marines. Talking about
mhm,
everything we've done for all of these years. I, I think we were just being like the strong arms.
mhm.
We
Yeah,
don't know what we were fighting for.
yeah,
Um, but where I was going with that is do you well twofold. First, do you have interest in telling those stories from the other side? Second, are you already aware of good resources for people who want to learn the
yeah.
other perspective?
Yeah. I mean, the first a lot of what I talk about in the first chapter of Si Se Puede,
Yes.
is inspired by a book that really, I kind of credit two books with, have like these life-changing, like, the book I read in high school that opened my eyes for the first time to, kind of realize, like, maybe we're not the good guys, maybe, um, that I
Just
think that was the
because we
first.
had a glitch on my side, I'm assuming that got
Sure.
recorded, but I didn't hear the title. Can
Okay.
you say the title
Oh,
again?
it's A People's History of the United
Oh,
States.
okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So
That
that
I
was
don't need
like,
to type in. That one I know.
yeah, yeah, that was the high school book, that
Right.
really, that, I guess radicalized me in a way, that, and,
There's a
you
decent
know,
comic of it too.
oh, is there? I
Just because
wasn't.
I'm always looking for the comic version of things. I read
Nice.
real books too, but the mixture of visuals and words
Hmm.
helps things sink in better.
Yeah,
Comics
I
engage
agree.
both sides of your brain. Comics are much more active reading.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. So yeah, there's obviously A People's History, and then the other one is Harvest of Empire by Juan Gonzalez. And it's a book that really dives into, I guess, the piece that book, you can track migration from Latin America to the US, to US funded coups in Latin America, to US imperialism, and just US intervention in Latin America. And Juan Gonzalez is someone who, I admire a lot, whose work is super important, in the Latino studies and Puerto Rican studies areas. And he was one of the founding members of the Young Lords. Um, so Harvest of Empire is another book that really changed my life in a way. And none of the work that I do would exist without me having read that book. Um, so I definitely recommend everyone read Harvest of Empire. But I kind of, I do like a very, very short version of it
I,
in the first chapter of Si Se
I
Puede.
will toss out for people who have Audible subscriptions already is actually included in your Audible subscription. So
Nice.
I just added it to my library. Makes it about fourth on my current list of books to listen to, but it'll come up sooner rather than later because right now I'm listening to a book about the radicalization of the white power movement,
Okay,
which
which book is it? Is it
I'm
Bring the
trying.
War Home?
Yes,
Okay, yeah,
listening to Bring the War Home right now, and I already
nice.
know that from there I need a palate cleanser because I did Enemies and Neighbors recently as well because I'm like, okay, I have a ton of Jewish students. I've got
Mhm,
a handful of Palestinian students,
mhm.
and I definitely have a ton of students that don't know how to feel about this.
Yeah.
And because I'm a paraprofessional rather than a teacher,
Mhm.
but also really ridiculously good at my job, and smart enough that I can make more money in any number of other places, I'm in that unique position that I don't have to worry too much about having a conversation with a student. You know, um, a because they know that I'm not a teacher or whatnot, they're that less likely to
Hmm.
tell their parents if they
Hmm.
get upset. But B, uh, again, I'm arguably overqualified for my job. So, well, not even arguably, I am overqualified for my job. I took a massive pay cut to do my job. Um, so I can have that position. Okay,
Hmm.
you need to understand this. You need to be able to talk about this. I'll take that risk.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, if you want to read more after Bring the War Home, there's a book called Culture Warriors that is more so about the current, like the last 5 years moment
okay.
of the white supremacist movement.
I mean, it might
And the
be
way,
it might be a little bit before I get to it, but it will definitely go on my
yeah,
list.
that one's more about like the online age of,
Okay. Culture Warriors, because the first thing coming up is a Bill O'Reilly book. I know you're
yeah,
not
that's not the
recommending
one.
a Bill O'Reilly book.
But for anyone listening, I will say that those two books inform my next project, which hasn't been announced yet. But it's a young adult graphic novel about right-wing radicalization amongst teenagers online, and that is surprisingly a big two graphic novel. That I'm very
Nice.
excited to see how people react to that one.
Really?
I think it'll be a little
A big
divisive,
two
but
graphic novel.
yeah,
I
yeah.
am psyched. You will have to come back and you hopefully it's the one of the big two that will let you talk to me.
Okay.
Well, the other one is not that they don't let me talk to me, but their PR department has gotten much more involved in who their writers and artists get to talk with. And I think the fact that I have a whopping 30 listeners on a consistent basis doesn't impress them.
Cool. Well, if it's the one that lets me talk, I will definitely talk to you about it
Sounds good.
when the time
Well,
comes.
you're allowed to say that out loud. I always tell people that they're allowed to tell me when we're running out of time. I normally try
Okay.
to ask at the beginning. So, Julio, it's been a great time. Well, I definitely want to do this again anytime you have something to announce, or if you ever just want to talk
Cool.
comics, we have the comic book clubs. If you ever want to read a comic and talk about it with us, we'll
Cool.
do that with you. I've discovered that there are a ridiculous number of comics creators that still don't have people to geek comics about, so we try to
Hmm.
fill that void.
Cool. Yeah. No,
Ah,
I'd love to come on. And speaking of who those people are, I texted my buddy Chris Condon. We were in the middle of a
oh,
conversation and I
that's
was like, "Oh,
hilarious.
I gotta do this podcast." And he's like, "Oh, tell Tad I say hey."
Yeah, Chris and I text on a regular basis.
Nice.
Yeah, Chris and I once, and we haven't managed to do it again yet, but like the craziest thing that we've ever done on this podcast is Chris and I were bored one morning
Mhm.
and live read Ann Nesenti, Steve Ditko Daredevil issue that neither of us read before. So
Okay,
we're just reading it and talking
that's
about it
cool.
on the air.
Getting surprised live by it.
Right, right.
Cool. Yeah, no,
So
Chris is a cool dude where
Chris is amazing.
he's one of my good friends in comics. We kind of, that Texas Blood and Home it started roughly around the same
We
time.
did.
Both of us first books at Image, so we kind of I don't know how we initially started talking, but that
Well,
was
and you're also
definitely
in the
what brought us
same
together.
because if you're in New York and
Yeah, he's in Jersey.
he's not in Jersey City anymore, but he's still in Jersey.
Yeah, no, we see
Um,
each other all the time.
okay,
We occasionally take a drive to Toronto for TCAF
okay.
together. Yeah, he's a good friend.
Well, I have a friend in New Jersey that I try to visit from time to time, in part because I just have gotten to know so many comics creators in New York. We always get together with Condon when I'm in town. So, we'll have to include you too.
Yeah,
Get you away from
definitely.
your kid for a night.
Yeah.
Unless you're still at that age where you don't like getting away from the kid for a night. But if the
No,
kid was
I'll take it
2 in
sometimes.
2018, I imagine. I mean, my kids are grown up, but I remember
Yeah.
when it like, oh, an excuse to leave the house. Fantastic.
Yeah, a lot of times it's when Chris and I go to see a movie, but
Yeah.
next time maybe for this.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining
Thanks
us.
for having me.
I'll be in touch, and I feel bad that I hadn't read more of your work already, but I adored it in the last
Thank you.
24 hours, so I will be reading lots more. And feel free to drop me any book recommendation. I mean, I trust your regular book recommendation. If you read something good, send me an email.
Cool.
Um,
Will do.
cause yeah. So let me take us out, and then I'll say goodnight. And yeah,
All right.
so
Sounds good.
for 22 panels, this has been Julio Anta, and we will see you after the next page.
Hey guys, this is Tyler from 22 Panels. I'm here to tell you all about our Patreon. If you enjoy this show, please consider donating to our Patreon to keep this show going. We have many different tiers, all different levels to help you decide what's right for you. Okay, so get on out there to patreon.com/22 Panels Podcast.